He is Yaron Weitzman. He is an NBA writer for Fox Sports. You can follow him on Twitter at that name, Yaron Weitzman. I'm guessing it wasn't hard for you to get that handle, Yaron. Not too many Yaron Weitzmans out there, I'm guessing.
No, but my Gmail, I had to add some numbers actually, surprisingly. But I guess that's
Really?
drawing from a bigger pool. Yeah, Israel. There may be some other ones in Israel there probably.
Oh, okay. Fair
but
enough.
yeah, Twitter was I was cool. Twitter I was cool. So
yeah, there you go. You gotta strike while the iron's hot. All right. Well, we've been talking about Kings expectations and sort of how similar Kings fans should be feeling to the last time that they were considered. I mean, I don't think a lot of people are picking them to win the NBA championship, but this is the closest that they've been since the early 2000s. And I wonder for you, how do you feel about this team now versus the team then, and sort of what sort of expectations the fan base should have?
I mean, the early 2000s, that team, I was playing NBA Live like 04 with that team, with like Chris Webber and Pedro.
They were fun. They were fun.
Bibby. I just think this happens a lot with teams. It's always interesting that the year after a team overachieves, right? And you want to look at what does growth actually look like. If you don't make another giant leap, is that considered a step back? I think organizationally, the Kings would probably say no. Managing fans' expectations is always the interesting part, and this is like to sound dumb, expectations are the key to everything in life, right? If you have low expectations, you exceed them, it's great. The other thing that I would guess would worry me, worry is the wrong word, but just the West is loaded. Like, it's absolutely loaded when you go through the entire conference and the 15 teams. How many are trying to make the playoffs? Basically all of them, right? Like, how many, except the Spurs, really? The Rockets were one of the worst teams last year. I don't think they'll be great, but they got better. Like, just the Warriors will be better. They have the Lakers back, Denver, Memphis. Basically, just the conference is absolutely loaded. So I think you can have a season where you look at the Kings and everything looks good, and the players are all getting better and gelling, and new pieces are working, and the front office, the coaching staff, everyone's on the same page. And Mike Brown's in year 2, and yet we're trying to avoid we're trying to see if we can be a 6 seed instead of the play-in, let's say, just because the rest of the teams in the conference are so good.
Yaron, when I say $62 million a year, 3 for 186, I mean, what is your response to that? Of course, that's what the Lakers gave Anthony Davis. And of course, they didn't have to. They already had him on the hook for 2 more years at $84 million. Why so much?
So the money, I think we're in for. Some people have written some good articles about this. Actually, I'll point to a buddy of mine at The Athletic, Mike Vorkunov, wrote a good story about this. Just how some of these numbers are going to start being really big for us. We're going to start seeing some of the numbers and how to be a little surprising. It's all based, like, it's a boring answer, but the way these numbers come, they're all based off total revenue, right? Like, the numbers aren't made out of nothing. It's percentage of the salary cap, percentage of total revenue. So some of these numbers are just going to end getting astronomical. Not because teams decide, hey, I want to start paying this guy $60 million right a year. It's more that you get a percentage of the cap, and right now with the amount of money that is coming in, it's only going to be more with the new TV deals coming down the pipeline. The amount of money coming in, this is the number. As for why do it now? You don't have to. It's when you're managing a team, I hear what you're saying. I mean, the Lakers, they're always with the clutch sports thing, and they have to make sure they're managing egos. But that's all teams too, right? That's part of the job, is kind of playing the game of where do I decide to be really strong and take a hard line, and where do I decide that it's worth to maybe pay a little more to kind of engender goodwill. Kind of see what happened with Philly, where Daryl Morey took a really hard line and clearly said to James Harden, we're not going to pay you anything close to what you want. And Harden is saying, okay, believe that, I want out of here, right? And that's kind of the other end of it, and what can happen if you don't thread that needle.
Yaron Weitzman, NBA writer for Fox Sports, joins us. Zakariah, Jay Johnson here on Sactown Sports. Well, keeping along that same line of thinking, there was some criticism about the Domas extension, but the way that I'm looking at it is, as you said, these numbers keep changing every year. So it's almost like it's smarter to do it early, just because that number's not going to look big as these contracts continue to swell. So what did you make of the Domas extension?
I was fine with it. If from a standpoint of like, what's the in a vacuum, if I don't care about feelings and I don't care about chemistry and sort of culture and vibes and all that, like, you should never be paying these guys early on, right? You wait till the last minute or like 6 months before you extend them and all that. But I kind of agree with you. I think when you lock up, if you have guys who are top 25 guys and they're pretty much in their prime, lock them up for years, and none of these contracts, even like Anthony Davis is 5 right now, is 3 on top of the 2. That's as long as you can get. In general, none of these deals are going like the days of 8-year deals, 7-year deals. Those are long gone. Usually now you have guys signed in for 3 years, and those they never become an albatross, that kind of a contract, because within 2 years it's a expiring deal, and that already has some value in itself, right? So I'm always on the position that it's smart to kind of lock guys up where you can. If you can do funky things like de-escalating, where you have to go down in the salary as years go on to kind of play. Give yourself more room going forward. I think there are ways to kind of play around with that stuff. So if I'm the Kings, you're coming off, you guys said to lead off this best season that they've had in, was it 20, whatever the number, what's the number, 25 years, whatever, you guys know better than me. Sabonis was the key of that. I'm cool. Run it back, lock everyone in, make sure we're all locked in and ready to go, and kind of build this thing going forward.
Yaron, something that's, of course, you have Tanking to the Top, the book that you wrote, keeping it in your backyard, and you talked about James Harden. I mean, is there any shape, form, or fashion that Joel Embiid could exit out of Philadelphia? Of course, knowing that the James Harden mess and Daryl Morey situation is going on right now.
The answer is yeah, but I'd be stunned if he would ask for a trade. Well, there's 2 parts to this. One, I'd be stunned if he would ask for a trade this season. I think things would have to go really badly. Harden would have to pull, maybe what he did in Houston and Brooklyn look like that was, him putting in good effort, right? He'd have to be that lackadaisical and that bad, and things would have to go really poorly. And Max would have to get hurt, and things would have to be a total mess before the deadline to ask out. I just don't see that happening. And the other part, when we talk about the Embiid thing, which I think gets forgotten sometimes, is just because he asked out for a trade doesn't mean Daryl Morey would have to trade him. And I kind of don't think that he would. I have no idea, but I just don't think Daryl Morey is in the business of saying, "Oh yeah, I'll trade the MVP," or just because he wants to be traded, or just do so just like that. So you put those 2 together, I'd be stunned if Embiid doesn't finish the season in a Sixers uniform. After that, you guys know, in an NBA calendar year, so much happens there, and so much of what happens, especially come playoff time, dictates how guys react after, and what guys want, desires, and how they start to go looking for things. After that, who knows? But I'd be stunned if he doesn't finish the season as a Sixer.
Yaron Weitzman, NBA writer for Fox Sports. You can follow him on Twitter at that handle. Check out his book, Tanking to the Top, the Philadelphia Sixers and the Most Audacious Process in the History of Professional Sports. Yeah, that whole tanking, that didn't really trust the process. I don't think people are still trusting the process anymore. Yaron.
I can't tell you how many times when the book came out, people are like, tanking to the top, it should be more tanking to the second round or whatever. That was a go-to joke.
Trust the process was one of those things where, all those different picks, it's like somebody should write a book about this. And you did. Thank you so much for joining us, Yaron.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, all those the Ben Simmons and Fultz. Fultz ended up being a good player, but just not for the Sixers. And they had all these picks. And then, the whole thing with Harden last year, and now he wants out. And it's like Embiid's got to be sitting there going, you can trust me in the process. Even he's been banged up too, but didn't quite go as
they had everything they wanted this past year. They were up on Boston and just couldn't finish it. Again, I go back to the Kawhi Leonard and the lucky bounce up there in Toronto. They've been on the opposite end of not finishing some runs they needed to. Yeah. And of course, luck went against them, but Embiid didn't show up in game 7. I think he had 14 points, against Boston. They just haven't been able to, corral it in and move forward and take the necessary, as we talked about with the Kings, the natural progression, the natural steps.
Yeah. Well, it almost kind of reminds, like when you were talking about the Chargers, like the Sixers just, you talked about the bounce.
Ooh,
and then Ben Simmons is like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Like he got that fat extension because he earned it.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden back problems, or maybe problems with the organization. But so many different bad things had to happen.
Jimmy
for
Butler
them.
Was playing for Philadelphia at one point in time.
I know.
How we not forget that?
I know. And then he beat the Sixers and walked off and said, "You paid
Tobias Harris over me."
Mm-hmm. One of the coldest walk into a locker rooms that you'll ever see.
Love Tobias Harris though. In what was the Adam Sandler movie with Hernan Gomez? Or am I blanking on that?
Grown Ups? I don't know.
No.
No, I know what you're talking about, but I never saw it. Anthony Edwards was in it.
Yeah.
There's a whole.
The one that just came out.
Yeah.
Not in the theaters, but yeah, he plays a gambling guy and he's a scout. I know what you're talking about.
Uncut Gems?
Yes, Uncut Gems.
No,
not that one. Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Oh Lord,
Okay.
Simone
Getting
bringing all
kinds
kind of jewelry to the
descriptions.
stuff. Yeah.
Sandler's
Okay.
been in like a jamillion movies, but yeah. Anyways, that was a basketball one, so I figured that was it.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, we'll figure that out.
Hustle.
There we
Hustle.
go. Okay.
Oh, why did someone say? Never mind.
No, Uncut Gems is definitely an Adam Sandler movie where he played. Anyways,
He wasn't. That wasn't a basketball movie.
We'll
That had
figure that-
KG in it.